Okay, hi everybody. Can you all hear me okay? I know you. You can, okay? I'll try to speak up. So my name is Brandon Purcell. I sit on the customer insights team at Forrester Research. I'm an analyst who writes research about artificial intelligence and advanced customer analytics. And so I'm going to be your moderator today. I'd like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and thank you very much to all four panelists for joining us and helping us explain what AI is and how we use it. So let's start with you, Jean-Francois, and we'll go this way.
Hi everyone. I'm a 15-year entrepreneur in the field of artificial intelligence. ElementAI, I'm the CEO of ElementAI now. It's my third startup. I had 2 successful exits in the past. We help our large enterprise transform their process and their business model to leverage our artificial intelligence technologies.
Great, thanks, Jean-Francois.
Cool.
Ben?
Hey, my name is Ben Hackett, and I work at Accolade. And we provide people an advocate to navigate through healthcare. So you get someone who is dedicated to your family, so you got a question about a bill or finding a provider. We help that, people navigate through that process. So I work on the mobile side, and we allow you to message your health assistant through that process.
Thanks, Ben.
Hi, I'm Safia Ali. I'm head of user experience for StubHub. My teams are user researchers, designers, prototypers, and we're leveraging AI to improve the customer experience across the StubHub platform.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Joseph Essas. I am CTO at OpenTable. I assume everybody knows what OpenTable is? Okay, just to be clear. Most of our experiences is we're trying to engage users to connect with restaurants as fast as possible and discover new restaurants. And so mobile is a big chunk of our business. We're experimenting a lot with a variety of AI ideas and how can we make that experience better. So excited to share some interesting ideas this morning.
Thanks, Joseph. As a San Francisco, I can say we love to eat and we like to attend live events, so we definitely are aware of your brands. So, we're all here because today it seems like AI is everywhere, and every time a vendor briefs me, their solution is infused with some sort of AI. So it's definitely the buzzword du jour. It's replaced big data and predictive analytics, which enjoyed their moments in the sun, but today everything is AI. So I'm hoping maybe you panelists can help us define, in your words, what AI really is and how it differs from the buzzwords of the last 5 to 10 years. Feel free to just jump in.
Sure. Yeah, I can start. So to me, AI is when a computer does something which a human would do as an action in a very simple way. So something we take for granted as humans. I ask you, hey, Brendan, where should I go to eat tonight? You're like, hey, you should probably go to this place. Tried it last night. It's amazing. Like, we take it absolutely for granted, that conversation. It's really, really hard to do that in a computer interface, in a mobile interface or any interface. So anytime we solve that kind of a problem, seems easy to a human, but really complex to a machine. That to me is an AI exercise. And I think particularly now, we're starting to differentiate ourselves from those kind of buzzwords of the past, of machine learning and deep learning or whatnot. And they're not necessarily the past, they're all techniques for the present as well. But we're trying to differentiate ourselves because the mobile becomes so prevalent, the screen becomes so small, the real estate becomes so small. We have no more abilities to, you ask a question, I give you 40 answers, you pick what you like. Everything needs to be precise, everything needs to be exact. And that's why it becomes such a harder and harder topic. How can we solve those interactions to create this simple, magical experience, easy, cleanly, where people get great kind of interaction out of it.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
So the way I would describe AI to my niece or nephew is that it's any system that knows you well enough and predicts your wants and needs without you having to give it a lot of information. And I think that the way it differs from the buzzwords like I don't think it's a trend. It's here to stay. You know, like 5 to 10 years ago, you could not imagine speaking into a device, and the device would know that you need to dim the lights or what music you want to play, right? So now you can create to-do lists, you know, with Alexa Home and Alexa and Google Home and all these devices right now, which are powered by AI, and really understand what you want to do at that moment in time. I think it's pretty certain that AI is not a trend, it's here to stay, and it's really going to change the relationship between products and users.
Great.
Yeah, I think a lot of it about, people wanting to have a conversation, which was previously, kind of a machine. We think a lot about, personalization and how we can have conversations with people to help them navigate, in our case, which is through healthcare. And so what's really interesting for us is how do we take all the information side of things, like you need a benefits card or you have a claim question, and tie it back into an actual conversation with a person, or to have that person assisted by a machine. We think a lot about kind of cooperative intelligence rather than having a bot that's going to talk to the actual person. Since we have a lot of people who have conversations, how do we kind of inform them with the most relevant information such that when we have a conversation, it's about empathy, it's about compassion, and the actual data side of the equation is kind of surfaced for what we call our health assistants, our actual people. And so for us, AI is very much about complementing kind of existing people who help in our case, our customers.
They're great use cases. I'm going to take a different angle on that one. When I think about what it means, I think that what we talk about AI today is a different way to program. It's a new way to code. And we're thinking about application in a totally new paradigm. We're no longer making a list or script of if, then, else, this, that, which used to be like the formalization of human understanding that we used to program and update and change and pay a coder to do. We now have access to a way to formalize much broader problems mathematically, and then just feed these models for them to adapt and figure out trends, patterns, figure out rules, what we want, what we like, what we dislike, and adapt automatically at a speed that was previously impossible, even for the most agile organization. And I think that that's what's exciting. So AI is kind of the continuity of a trend. If you look at that, we've been exponentially reducing the cost of producing complex applications. And this is just a continuity of that. And we've been reducing it with the cost of access to hardware, the cost of access to data, and now the cost of producing very highly complex software has been reduced with deep learning and a lot of the advances on the algorithm front. So what is absolutely amazing now is that we can tackle problems that were previously out of reach for a large organization to do machine translation at a level of performance that was unthinkable before, and for startups to tackle very complex problems and really transform like totally whole industries. So I think beyond the hype, there's been some tectonic shift in our ability to deliver value using software and using technology. And this isn't for sure going away.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very bullish on AI, and I do think that's a big differentiation from the past. Instead of having deterministic codes, we can learn from data and adapt to new data and new customer behavior over time. And then I also like the personalization and human-like aspect of artificially intelligent systems. Specifically today, we're seeing it in chatbots, Alexa, and other devices. A lot of people are probably thinking, well, I need to go out and get AI or infuse AI into my product or my app. Do you think that's a good approach to take to this movement?
So I can go. Definitely. I think that AI basically it helps you understand your user behaviors, understand your users' wants and needs really well. So I think that's a core function for any business. Any business that really wants to serve its customers well has to understand its customers, and AI helps you do that. So for us, and any technology has to be assessed with the customer lens. I guess I'm the user experience person here, so I'll bring in that perspective. So anything like I think what I would encourage every business to do is really see like what are the pain points that you can solve with artificial intelligence, which basically means understanding user behaviors and then making it faster, reducing friction, creating a more seamless experience. We've also moved, from the trend, like, we started with desktop, right? We started actually with text interfaces. Then we moved to like desktop, graphical, which was then the screen size became smaller. Then we did, mobile first. Then we did, wearables. Now it's voice interfaces. So, and voice is so like contextual and cultural, and we don't have to teach. With screen sizes or all the different platforms, we had to teach people how to use them, where to click, where to look. With the conversation, it just comes naturally to people. So the expectations are much higher.
Right.
And people really have to, I think businesses really need to take that leap, because that is going to be the future, where people will not want to interact with the screen size or any device. They'll just want to speak into things and get what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree. Today we interact with machines on their terms, but we will be able to interact with them on our own. What about the rest of you? Any perspectives on how to go about adopting AI?
I mean, I think to me, it's not as easy as just, oh, we're going to put AI into our mobile application. I think there's a lot of work that we go through in working with our data science team, and on the mobile side, like defining all the clickstream data, all the schemas that we're going to use to make sure that it's something that our data science team can use. Really committing to that, I think, and being really rigorous and disciplined in thinking about how we're going to use intelligence and AI in our application. And so, to me, it's absolutely something you should do. I think all of our major initiatives are tied to it. We think about it in helping people navigate, but it's not something that I think is as simple as just putting it into the application. It's something that we've taken an incredible amount of thought of, both from the user experience side and then on the technical back-end side to make happen. So,
yeah, the change is AI is no longer a feature. You've been using AI and say, hey, you have a lot of data, you can probably do something with it, and low-hanging fruit kind of thought process, which works. You get some benefits there. We're at a point where you need a whole strategy around not necessarily AI, but how you're going to go at building your business and how you're going to go at building these insights, the right ones, who are going to empower that virtuous cycle, that reinforcement cycle that will feed these engines for them to improve and help you do very, very, very traditional things. A higher level of service, faster delivery of your service, and faster reaction to change. And this is what it's going to ultimately provide. You look at any industry, and it always goes back to that. Then your operating point goes lower. You can lower either your price or offer more service. And I don't want to oversimplify this, but it gets back to that. And that's the reason it's so fundamental. That's why we hear that on all fronts. And it's impacting every single industry. Now, when it gets to where to start, I think the point is you need to first incorporate that, and then you need to understand what's your data governance strategy. Because you no longer command and control. You influence these systems. That's an important shift in how you're going to run and build your business. You need to invest to get some of these insights. You'll pay sometimes crazy amount of money for databases just in order to expose your algorithms to these insights so that you can deliver better something on the other side. You would have never done that without that technology. So it changed fundamentally the strategy and how you're going to go at operating your business.
Right.
So people need to start thinking about that. And often the journey between, shifting from a pure command control, human-driven intelligence to a fully automated AI-first company, that journey can be a very, very long one. And no needs to rush it because you're gonna probably fail. So you need to go, step by step and slowly evolve there.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like to maybe answer the question. Like the way we look at this developing products is we try to see what customer's problem we're trying to solve, and rather than say we need to use AI in our business, what are we trying to solve for a customer? Like in our business, we have diners, we have restaurants. Both of them are our customers. For diners, it might make sense that if we're trying to recommend something, AI is a good application of that. And if we're trying to understand, what's in the photos, what kind of food is there, is it suitable for you, et cetera, AI might be an interesting applications there. For restaurants, it might be completely something different, and AI might be applicable or not. We're working very hard trying to, for restaurants, provide better hospitality. What does it mean in terms of AI? Well, can I infer out of all your guest book, like what kind of people coming to you, and what should you do differently, what people like, what people don't like, and give you some insights into your business that would help you run your business better? Maybe that's an application that's suitable there. So always we try to look at what we're trying to solve, and then what's the best technology to go do that. AI in many cases is in today's world when there's tons of machinery and tons of data available, but it's not always. So.
That's usually what I advise our Forrester clients to do. And on that note, what are some of the specific use cases that you've started with in your organizations adopting or implementing artificial intelligence?
So for StubHub, we, building on to what you just said, Joseph, we use a lot of AI for pricing guidance, which is basically, we're a marketplace, right? We don't own the inventory, and we don't own, we don't own anything. We just connect buyers and sellers. So basically, we use artificial intelligence to inform our sellers what the right price should be for their tickets. And then the same data we use to inform the buyer that, okay, this ticket is at this price for an event that you would love to go to. So, that's totally right. Like, anything, like, for example, a little while ago, VR was the buzzword, right? Like, everybody was like, oh, we need VR, right? So we took the same customer perspective, and, one of our biggest pain points was that, when people are buying tickets, and, they're like $500+ tickets, their biggest question is, what is my view going to be from my seat? So that's where we implemented VR, right? That, okay, if we give them a view, and it immediately gave us a lift in conversion, and people could see, exactly, and that helped that. So it's always, I agree with that. It's always the business lens and then the customer lens. But one of the things that's been really successful for us is, like, we just launched chatbots for Skype and Messenger. So we leverage a lot of data that we had from our field offices and from our customer service agents. So we looked at what are the most commonly asked questions, what are the things that people say when they're going to and talk to a live agent at a StubHub center. And then we powered the bots to talk like that, so that it looks conversational, it doesn't come across as mechanical. So that's one example that's, been where we've leveraged huge data sets, to inform product experience. And basically, we're going into the direction where you don't have to go to a web app or a web or an app, and you can just have the conversation with a bot while you're in the moment. Because I think that's the other thing with AI. Like, it helps us connect with the customer where they are, right? Before they even have to go and launch a website, or your starting point of a conversation for going out to a live event is with a group of friends, right? So you're saying, okay, let's go to this event, okay, what seats should we get? So the bots and iMessage apps are helping us with that group conversation, and the social setup before you go to the event. And then for the transaction, right now, just for the transaction, you will come into the app or the website. But eventually, we think our AI will let us build products where the user won't have to connect with the website or the app at all. And they can do the entire transaction with a bot by just speaking into it, saying that, and we layer all the data sets that we have about what an individual's, what seat do they like to buy, do they always like an aisle seat, or, or what is their price point. So we layer all those recommendations and personalization that we have, and with our, layer it on top of VR or even AR. And you would just be able to buy a ticket from your seat at home, from your couch.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really like the seat view capability. I use that regularly, so thanks for that. I agree with you. I do think it'll be conversational. And you brought up the point of using a massive data asset to actually train the chatbot to do its job in the way that a human would. I think that the title of this panel is, it's all about the data stupid. First of all, I didn't make up that title. Nobody's calling anybody stupid. but it is all about the data at the end of the day. So can any of the rest of you talk about how you've employed?
I'd just like to add something there. And you know, we talk a lot about chatbots, and there's one thing to realize is AI readiness, or your own data set readiness, is something that is super important to assess. And it's not all the process that you're going to look at that are all going to be treated equal in terms of user expectations. So if you use a chatbot, for instance, in a marketing environment, the user expectation on how well it should perform is dramatically different than if you're trying to solve, let's say, support cases with a chatbot. Okay, the same technology might even perform, let's say, better on a support cases, but the tolerance for mistakes coming from your user when they're seeking support, it's much harder to reach their threshold of satisfaction than on a marketing environment. You fail to present them the right offer, they're like, no, that's not really what I'm looking for. Like, I'm looking for this, you know, and then you send something else. You got a second shot at it, a third shot at it. If you're in a support case, they explain to you something that they think is meaningful, maybe there's missing information, and then your AI basically suggests the wrong answer, they're going to go nuts. You're risking of losing the customer. And if they happen to realize that they're talking to a bot, you're done. Okay? If they talk to a human, the threshold point is different. They're going to excuse that the person might be new. They're going to excuse that the person might be wrong or didn't know, made a mistake, had a bad day. They don't do that with a system. So it's just something to point out. As I'm hearing this, I've seen a few customers, you know, trying to go with the same tech, and then they have success in some area, and then they use the same tech in the other one, and then fail miserably. Mm-hmm. So it's something to be conscious of.
Actually, to piggyback on that, I think it's a fantastic point, because people underappreciate today how complex it is to create that simple interaction with the machine. Like that's something I mentioned earlier, which is, where should I go eat tonight, Alexa? And Alexa then says Boulevard in San Francisco, and you're like, I already been there 5 times, and and I'm looking for something else. But with a human, that interaction is much more forgiving. It's much more natural. With the machine, is like, well, you should have known that, and like, what is wrong with you, and that's a big challenge. That's a big challenge. You know, we today we experiment with a lot of this interactions, voice interactions, you know, with all of the devices out there, be it Google, you know, Facebook, Alexa, etc. And it's really hard problem to solve for the interaction to be natural. It works very, very well for very deterministic statements. Mm-hmm. What's the weather outside? Like, that's a very clear question and answer. Right. It's much more complicated for those kind of ambiguous interactions. And I think that's what we do day in, day out. That's what we try to figure out, how else to solve that problem.
Right. Yeah. I think we're lucky in the sense that we don't work with chatbots yet, so we don't have to have anything on the front end where someone's going to have that sort of bad experience. And also, healthcare is really complicated, right? Like, you're emotionally maybe in a typical spot. It's maybe not the right time to make a decision. And so for us, we focus more on the human side. We have, you know, over 500 health assistants who we can present information to so that they can make the right decision. And so what we're focused on is more on using the millions of interactions we have to get to outcomes that are correct based on our historical data. So you have a claims question that turns into a question about your depression. That then informs kind of our profile of you, and we're able to personalize that based on an eventual outcome, which is, for this person, you should talk to a behavioral health specialist, you should see a primary care physician, and then we monitor that outcome, add it to our continual sort of accrual of data to append our current data sets, and then get to a success, which is someone being more healthy in this point.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, because it's not always going to interface directly with the customer. You have to decide what sort of user or customer experience you want. if you think about a retail bank who's probably doing sophisticated customer lifetime value modeling on their customers, maybe for the majority of customers, the chatbot is the right answer, but for those high value customers, you probably want to give them a white glove experience and maybe inform that experience using AI in the background.
Yeah, so if you can give that person the information they need, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's funny you also bring up, we're much less forgiving of AI. I was thinking about self-driving cars. If a self-driving vehicle gets into an accident, it's a really big deal. It happens a lot less frequently than humans getting into accidents.
And it's still every time it happens, everybody's freaking out.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though the percentage is much lower than humans, there's no tolerance.
No tolerance. Yeah. So let's talk about the organization a little bit, because we've all heard about the shortage of data scientists. Of course, people who understand machine learning, particularly deep learning, are necessary for AI. But in my opinion, it's a cross-functional team that needs to be devoted to this. What sort of skills or roles should be involved in any project within an organization that involves artificial intelligence?
I'll say we're pretty much early days. We've been lacking access to talent and people that are truly knowledgeable about AI at a grand scale for the last couple of years. I think the market is fixing that slowly, and we're talking more and more about the technology, so people will start to understand. I think it's a meaningful change in the way an organization, whatever they're doing, is operating, which means that everybody needs to reach a certain level of understanding of what it means. So I think it's the same kind of shift we've done with information technology, at the beginning of the internet. We're still very, very early in the broad utilization of artificial intelligence technology. So at this point, I think education, broadly speaking, in organization is a great starting point. Now, when it gets to executing on a project, I think the number one thing to nail really right, again, is the data governance strategy. And that will involve people way beyond the technical people who are going to actually make the code happen or use whatever library there's out there. And then, of course, you need technical people and support and everything to get it right. The other pitfall, and we talked about it, is really about the user interaction and assessment of the real expectations, which are really hard to pinpoint. So these things are moving targets, which makes for a lot of organizations and a lot of companies implementing AI a very doubtful task. It's something that has a lot of uncertainty built in, and it needs to be scoped and that way, and it needs to be really managed well. And budgets are always going to go over, because current expectations are that it's going to be similar that that SaaS system implementation we've done, or that library we've implemented in the past. And there's more moving parts around that technology, therefore more risk. So projects are going to be bigger.
So you mentioned the user interface or the user interaction. I think that's important. Safia, I was wondering if you could comment on how the UX team should be involved in AI just as much as the technical folks, data scientists and data engineers.
Yeah, so at StubHub, the way we are doing it right now is that some of those really big pain points, like the pricing guidance or ticket recommendation or best value, those teams, the composition of the teams is PM, UX, engineers, QE. So within those teams, we embedded machine learning scientists. So we had a few, and that's how they ran lean experiments, and then we scaled it across the experience. But I think the future really is that we would reimagine the entire experience with AI. So right now, it's like we're using AI to make our experience better, right? But I think the future is to really reimagine the entire experience. And I think that's where the user experience team really comes in, and within the user experience team, I think there was a time for interaction designers. It started actually with web, and it was just like it was the time to be the visual designer for web. Then it became the interaction designer, right? Or then researcher. Now it's the content writers or content designers, because conversational UI has a lot to do with writing, right? So and basically you're writing and you're guessing what the other person is going to say, because you don't know what the speaker, what the person you're talking to is going to say. So I think from a user experience point of view, it's a very exciting challenge, to really design experiences without any face, without an interface, where your medium is just voice.
Yeah.
It has to be very cultural. It has to be, how you say, Safia, how are you today? How you greet me here is very different than how you say it probably in Germany or in India or China. Sure. So I think all those things, the cultural context is going to be more relevant with voice interfaces than any other interface has been, in the past. So I think from the UX point of view, we're very excited. It's a new medium. It's completely different. But I think really the next leap is to really reimagine what the experience would be like, without having to interact with anything.
I think it's an opportunity to have a much more flexible experience.
Absolutely.
You can get your AI system to learn about each user's on a much finer level, which enables you to cater that experience, the sequence of the task, the things they're going to do, the questions you're going to ask at a much finer grain. I think what it brings is higher level questions in terms of how you're going to position your brand. Questions that sometimes even people don't necessarily ask themselves, they just use the standard.
Yeah.
Now you'll have flexibility, which is going to be an opportunity to define your own business personality. How you're going to engage, and I think it's a new channel and it's a new way eventually once we get there to express yourself.
Yeah, and it's also the things that we solve today, right? Like we spend so much energy on optimizing the checkout experience, right? But with AI, there shouldn't be a checkout experience, right? I shouldn't have to enter anything when I'm trying to buy an experience. So I shouldn't have to try to figure out how to log into the site or the app. Like all the problems will change. And also, like as you see the next generation, right, that's coming up, like kids who are, less than 5 years today, who have, Google Home or are growing up with Alexa and stuff, like they will in 15 years solve these problems completely differently.
Right.
How their mind on how to buy a ticket is going to function very differently than ours does today.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's exciting times ahead.
Absolutely, very exciting times. And speaking of the times ahead, I was wondering, it sounds like one of your predictions is around the conversational interface. How else do you think AI is going to transform your businesses and the world?
I think it's almost like a disservice to the industry that everything today is about conversational experiences. That's the example of AI. Be it chatbots, be it all those voice interfaces. Again, I look at everything as there's so many things we do as humans which we take for granted that if we can solve, our lives potentially would be better and our experiences would be better and we would be able to focus on other things while all those trivial things are being taken care of. And to me, it doesn't stop at voice at all. It stops at, as you walk on the street and you observe what's around you, your mind constantly makes kind of conclusions, observations, judgments, like you do this all day long. You don't even notice that. If that could be part of the experience that machine is doing in some level for you and then can help you at the end of the day come to some conclusion, come to some realization, hey, you passed this store, and maybe there's something interesting there. And like there's variety of applications where I see goes way beyond the voice, and I'm really excited to see what's coming there.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to ask one more kind of either fun or traumatizing question, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. So most people here have probably seen The Matrix or The Terminator. How scared should we be?
I think, I don't think too scared. I'm going to be interested to hear what your answer is. I think what concerns me in the short term is more of our own biases that get implemented into the models we build, the models that we build and the people who build them have their own biases, whether that's sexism or racism, and how that influences how people interact or how we build historical models on that. That to me is a really big question we have to answer. That to me is on the scarier side. I think I worry a little bit less about machines taking over and more about how this influences politically and ethically how we interact with machines.
I'm writing a report on that right now. That's a great point. Yeah.
Super good point. I think it gets back to, the data governance issue and how immature we are all about managing our data, because data was the result of things we've been doing, and now it needs to be the input. And that's a fundamental shift. I'm personally scared about a few things that are kind of immediate. And just to like state a bunch of things that are happening right now. So one of our researchers published a paper earlier this year out of University of Montreal, and basically what they're capable of doing. So there's been things going around, you know, you can take a picture, learn the style of a Monet or a Noir, and then you just transfer that picture into a painting looking of that artist. So you've probably seen that on the web. If not, you can look it up. There's tons of examples like that called style transfer. So we can now, with a 5-minute recording of your voice, replicate exactly how you talk. And I could be speaking, and someone else on the line could think that it's you, to a point that it's going to fool most human. These are kind of scary things that are happening. Another one, I can film your face, and with a short video, film myself, and then project on Skype like if it's you it's talking, like with the mouth and everything, to a very high degree of fidelity. So think of all the things that we can buy on the phone, that we can, you know, video chat, or things like that. Like it shake some foundations of how we're doing transactions. So this is scary, and this is going really quickly. So these things are shifting. Same thing. I think that one of the biggest questions is right now, like we need to redefine our social contract as society, and that's true in any country. What used to be noise, meaning that I'm walking from here to wherever I'm going, the airport, and I hop in a cab, whatever, I used to be anonymous. Unless someone recognized me, nobody will be able to track that. Now there's hundreds, thousands of data points that will remember that I've been from point A to point B for forever, sometimes depending on a platform. I'm no longer anonymous in public. And the laws and everything, the legal system, the contract has changed. Because with AI now, we can use that information for other purposes. And it's a void right now. So these are very concrete, real, immediate threat that I think shakes how we live. And then that's personally my biggest fear, is that we don't address it and we end up somewhere we don't necessarily are going to like.
Safia or Joseph, would you like to jump in before we turn it over?
You know, go ahead, please.
So I know that people like Elon Musk and Steve Hawkins have claimed that AI is the biggest threat to humanity. But you know, there are some, you know, like some of the examples that you gave, there are some scary things going on. You know, like I don't know how many people are familiar with AlphaGo, which is it's the first system that has beat the #1 player in China last year. So I think in pockets it is surpassing human intelligence, you know, in a lot of ways. But you know, to your point, that it is our social and, you know, moral obligation. Like maybe we know about the threats early on, so we design and, you know, use it in a way. But definitely there is a lot of, you know, I think there are both schools of thoughts. You know, one school of thought is that, you know, yes, it's the biggest threat, but there's also the school of thought which believes that, you know, nothing can, you know, the judgment, the compassion, the empathy, like all those things that, you know, a human being has is going to be very hard to replicate with machines.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't share necessarily a lot of kind of gloom and doom that's out there. I'm a huge believer in humans and our ability to survive. If you look at through the history, the social contracts and our interactions with each other been changing dramatically for sure in the last couple hundred years. And if you tell somebody, if you tell somebody 200 years ago about the world today, not only they would never believe you, they would think it's nuts, and probably would be tremendously scared. How can we live like this?
Right.
You know, where we're talking to our phones and we're not even talking, we're typing or whatnot, and we can get from point A to point B in 5 hours. It used to take 5 months. Like all those things were changed the way society operates, the way people interact with each other, and we proven over the many years of history has showed tremendous resilience to change and tremendous ability to adopt. And I think, therefore, all the things that we're describing here, they're all challenges. They're all things we need to deal with. We will adapt, I have no doubt. And I have no doubt that in 50 years from now, we're going to look back 50 years and we're going to say, we didn't see this coming, but it all makes sense the way we live now in 50 years from now. So kind of that's my point of view. We just kind of on a train of history and trying to enjoy it as much as we can.
Good. I like that. That's a very hopeful message. How about the audience? We have time for probably 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, do you want to speak your question? I'll repeat it for everyone.
I can't hear you. Can you come up? I can't hear you, sorry.
So my question is for you, because who are in the interaction design and design. So when you're designing enterprise systems, in enterprise systems, there are consumers of information, like IT professionals, right? They do a lot of, interaction with the system, very chatty systems. So when let's say I'm designing a monitoring system with AI in the background, where the system is doing a lot of intelligent decision making, how should we think of designing the user interface so that you are now not dealing with millions of data points, as that come out and you call it the Christmas tree lighting up, but now there are these interactions and you're trying to tell the system, hey, no, this is wrong or ignore it. Like, any insights on how do you design such interactions with such very intelligent systems?
So let me just repeat it really quickly. The question is for Safia, and although you can all jump in, and it's about when developing AI systems for enterprises where there are, hundreds of millions of data points, how do you design these systems with the user experience in mind to I think, simplify them?
Yeah, I think it's, I think without full context of the system, it's hard for me to give a clear direction. But overall, I think it's just leveraging the data sets you already have, and how to make, AI, like the experience should be frictionless, seamless, as clean as possible. And I think the way you can make your system smarter is leveraging the data that you already have on those systems. I don't know, Joseph.
No, in the enterprise, it represents a tremendous opportunity. The way to think about it is really to think about the process. You pick an horizontal process, and then you rethink what it means if actually AI was empowering it. And then you go from there backward. So for a lot of these situations, the right way to think about this is more top-down and bottom-up. A lot of organizations have been trying to go bottom-up and end up with blind spots. Like they go in a project, they make some quick win, they do data analytics, and then they're like, oh, let's go through, analytics to predictive to prescriptive kind of a journey, which seems very comfortable. And it's quick, nice steps and everything. Thing is, like we've been making such tremendous progress in AI that now you have the opportunity to just scratch that and then look at, hey, what it would look like if my customer engagement process was now run by an AI and supported by a group of people that would feed it, guide it, and orchestrate what's happening, and then redefine it from there. And then you turn around and you look, okay, I have data assets here and here and there. I can nail that part of the process, but I'm missing, and you will be missing, a bunch of stuff around. And that's where your data governance strategy get into play. But really, to truly meaningfully implement these things and generate true returns, it tends to be top-down more than bottom-up.
Great. I think we have time for one more quick question. Gentleman in the front.
So I come from Julia, I do data engineering, so I wanted to ask, we don't do a lot of chatbots, we do a lot of machine learning related things, but back to the chatbots. How do you evaluate the performance of the chatbot? You mentioned that people have zero tolerance when they discover it's a chatbot. Did you experiment actually telling people up front that this is a chatbot that you're talking to? How do they react? And in general, like performance-wise?
So the question is, how do you evaluate the performance of a chatbot, and is it a best practice to tell users or customers up front that this is a chatbot?
Depends on your brand, depends on the problem you're trying to solve. So I've seen organizations going at it with both strategies. And again, it gets back to, It's really more about what is the use case you're after. The use case will define the expectation. So it's use case based, the expectation. And then depending on the level of complexity of your use case, you need to assess what are the data sets you need to put in place. And that will define, you know, if it's possible or not to do it. I'm coming back to the point I was making before. We're still very early days, and systems most of the time starts from scratch. We don't yet have, and for some of you that might be familiar, an ImageNet equivalent of, you know, database. There's some language database out there, but for a lot of the use cases that are more specific, marketing or like support, they depend so much on how your business operates and the type of service you want to deliver that you need to build up your own database. You cannot train your model on the web, on public data sets, and then use that as a starting point and get to a very high level, more predictable level of performance. So for a lot of use cases with bots, when you're in the enterprise, you need to build it up. So it's better to start slowly, and depending on what's the service you deliver, you can tell people that it's a bot. And then you can start by managing their expectation and say, hey, you can wait in line to talk to a human, or you can try our bot. And then set the expectation and manage it along the way. And then reinforce the system. So you need to, you know, be very creative in how you're going to engage and how you're going to set these expectations. Again, without a specific example, it's harder. It's really use case driven and industry driven. But just broadly speaking, that'd be my approach.
Thank you. I would just say that I would measure performance based on frequency. How frequently people engage with this, same people engage with this bot. And if you see it's one and done type of engagement, then you know it's not working. And when you see people coming back and willing to engage again and again, same people, then you know you're doing something right. And so measuring that frequency over time, maybe on a cohort basis or even not on a cohort basis, I think that would give you the insight, like, are you making improvements? Are you doing something right, doing something wrong? So that, yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, I see people lining up for lunch out there. I don't want to deprive anyone of their lunch, so thank you so much, Jean-Francois, Ben, Safia, and Joseph. Thank you very much, and thank you all for spending 45 minutes.